Hello and welcome to Built on Air, a podcast and video series about all things Airtable. I'm your host, Zoe Vanderplu, and I'd like to thank our sponsor, OpenSide. Visit openside.com for products and services that will take your Airtable to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir, one word, all caps, for a one-time $20 credit off of any purchase. Today I welcome Melissa Hanson from New York City. Melissa is Director of Marketing and Research at a commercial real estate company by day and a self-proclaimed film nerd by night. She is co-founder of the movie website Real News Daily, which features interviews, film reviews, and other industry tidbits. Melissa has combined her love for film with her knowledge of Airtable to create an awesome selection of TV and movie-related bases on Airtable Universe. Many of these are the results of her own cataloging and research, including the one that she demos for us today, a base detailing the actor crossovers between the Marvel and DC Comics film universes. Check out BuiltOnAir.com to sign up for our mailing list, where you can get weekly updates on new Built On Air episodes and other fun Airtable things. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being here with us on Built On Air today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, personally, professionally, just all around. Who is Melissa?
My day job is I work at a New York City commercial real estate company. So we find tenants for properties and find properties for tenants. But on the side, I do a film website called Real News Daily, and we go to festivals, review movies. I started it with another girl about 4 years ago now, and been doing that for, on the side for like almost 10 years now. And I got into Airtable and have totally been nerding out on it and doing bases, all kinds of ridiculous things I can even think to put together.
Right, yeah, because you're like, I have this idea, I'm just going to spend half an hour and play around with it, and then 2 hours later you're like, okay, break time. So tell us a little bit more about sort of your love for film and Real News Daily. It's a website, obviously. You guys go to festivals and stuff. What was the most recent festival or screening you've been to?
Probably New York Film Festival last October. That one is a real, more of the prestigious sort of ones because, they usually show a movie from Cannes or from Sundance, not even from Sundance, more like Cannes and the Venice Film Festival. But my favorite one to do is that Tribeca Film Festival because they have so many, and I just see so many movies, and it's just wonderful. It's coming up in the next 2 months. And that's the one where it's we probably try to get in 2 or 3, even 4 movies in a day, just back to back. And it's super fun. I'm originally from Missouri, so I transplanted to New York in 2007. So I've been over here a little over 10 years, and always just loved movies. And once I hooked up with a couple of people who started writing their own stuff for other websites. And, after a while, it's instead of, just working for someone else, why don't we just start our own? And when we started our own, we started, getting different invitations to stuff. And it's just sort of jumped off of there. And it's hilarious and it's fun. And, I got to interview Chris Evans before he was even Captain America. So that's
cool.
one of my favorite things.
Right. That's your cool cocktail party story, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So how do you kind of, you mentioned that, you don't use Airtable quite as much in your, professional quote unquote real job. But how have you kind of woven it into your film stuff and your other hobbies, and, personal to-do list tracking or whatever you use it for?
I started basically using it because I wanted something for my own personal online digital movies, because like I have movies I own on iTunes, on Vudu, you know, and like there's Ultraviolet, and there's so many different facets. Like sometimes you have access to an iTunes, but you don't have access to it in another, you know, there's just so many different ways.
Right.
And so I was really just looking for a way to organize that. And I had taken a Ruby on Rails course, and, you know, I built something which I really loved, but it just, there was, you know, I didn't, honestly, I was too impatient to learn the code for it, where I was just like, I want to do this. And it just took so much concentration that it was just like, you know, I want something that's just simpler. And, you know, I think it might've been a Facebook ad that I clicked on for Airtable. Like I had been searching for some sort of database option for a while. I looked into like the Microsoft Access, I think it was, but it was just like, that was way too clunky.
Right. Very
and,
like 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so I was just like, there's just really nothing that I could use. And then when I stumbled on the Airtable, I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started doing more of that. And, you know, I put it together, and I was like, okay, well, now what? Because that was fun and I want to do another one. So I just started thinking of other things to start doing. And, you know, I did like move it in with work. So I did like a property listing. So I have just like a basic property listing base. But since I collaborate with other people and they're not as versed in it as I am, I don't want to do as many of the like fun functions with them. So I just basically started doing more personal stuff so I could like just totally nerd out and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So I started doing, like I organized my entire Tribeca thing last year. I put everything in there, and I put all the press screenings, and I put them all in the calendar view so I could like figure out which days I should go and the times and stuff.
Nice.
And started doing like all kinds of other stuff. See what else I think I wrote everything down. Oh, I did my Netflix originals, which I haven't maintained because it just became too cumbersome, but I really love doing that too. That was really fun. And that was like, you know, just entering information in, and I'm kind of, I think a lot of it is I love the research, and I love just the relationships between the data. Right. And I haven't quite figured out exactly how it would work and what it's actually used for, but it's fun to do. So, you know, I just start doing bases and trying to come up with something to see if it could work. Yeah, I mean, I have another one where I just did all the Game of Thrones characters that had been recast. Like cool. At first it was like a couple of them, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a lot of people have been recast. Like the Mountains recast 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. Which,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but.
I have friends who watch it. I have to confess that although I've caught like, you know, random episodes, I can't bring myself to start from the beginning because I feel like I'm too late. Like there's so much, but also when I tell that to people, they're like, I'm jealous of you. I wish I could start from the beginning for the first time, you know? So it's on my list. But I really like kind of, you have this kind of general theme where you're like, Airtable is perfect for kind of managing your like digital clutter, right? Or, you know, you're like, well, I'm interested in this thing, and, you know, I've been Googling it for half an hour. I should probably maybe just record this somewhere so I can, you know, produce at least something from, you know, Game of Thrones research or whatever. Is there anything in your sort of like tinkerings and experiments, a feature that you really love and use often about Airtable, besides just, you know, of course, the sort of basic, you know, relational database type thing? What do you really, you know, what do you love to tinker with? I love the views. I think the views are just amazing. You know, the fact that I can filter stuff and sort it and have it in a preset view all the time. Like I never really realized that was even possible in Excel. And I mean, it actually is, but it just seems a little too hard to grasp. With Airtable, it's just so simple. And I love, they just did the automatic sorting, which is fantastic. I love that feature. Oh,
And, it's just so much fun to play with a different way of showing a material.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I really like about it, because you can put it in you could use a little picture, or you can put it as just like their name, or, I've started playing a lot with formulas, and I actually did a whole thing on, being able to embed, for the Tribeca thing. So you have all these movies and you have all these trailers and everything, and synopsis and everything goes with them. And I was like, every time I did a review, I was like, I'd have to go and I'd have to copy and paste all this information. And I was like, oh, if I had it on an Airtable, I could just do a filter of which movies I've seen, and then presto, pop it in.
Right.
And so I started doing that, and I went down all kinds of rabbit hole with that. But just, you can, in the blocks, I got on the paid plan like a month ago. And so I've started playing around with the blocks too. And the blocks are really fun.
Cool.
I really want to dig in a little bit more. I'm not as well versed on charts and things. So that's something that I really need to kind of get more information on and dig into. But
right. Yeah. But I think also too, you make a good point how, Airtable does some things that, Excel can still do, filtering, charts. But I think the barrier to entry to kind of getting comfortable with those is much lower on Airtable. Excel is just a little bit more finicky, and also just not as, fun to use in some ways.
Well, and it's so funny because Excel actually has a lot more features.
Right.
They have all the formatting, all the fonts and sizing and everything like that. But really, that kind of gets in the way of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I liked about Airtable, is that it kind of strips away all of that, and it really just has you focus on the data.
That's a good point. Yeah, when you're building something in Excel, you're like, okay, well, here are my headers. Should I make them larger? Should I make them bold? Do I want to do color coding, or all of this stuff to kind of make it look like a little bit nicer and more readable? But I think Airtable is just inherently easy to look at. So I don't find myself missing those features very often. Maybe a little bit sometimes. But yeah, very cool. And so tell us a little bit more about your project that you're going to share with us today, which is a base you've created for the sort of actors in the Marvel and DC comic universes, right?
Yeah, so that kind of came about of just talking with some people and being like, there's so many actors who are actually in the Marvel universe and were previously in the DC universe. And so it just got me thinking. I was like, oh, how many of there are there? And so I got into another research of all these people, and I was like, ooh, this could be an Airtable. And so I just started just adding and researching, and it turned into so many. I couldn't believe how many people were in both categories. And then there's a whole facets of it. In Marvel, there's the MCU, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and those are the newest ones. But then there's the subcategory is just based on a Marvel comic, so it's not necessarily part of that universe, but they are tangentially related.
Right.
And same with DC. Yeah.
Cool.
So so I was able to make a tab for that, and make a tab for characters, make a tab for actors, and there's just kind of map out as much as possible.
Right. And it's
there's so many.
Yeah, it's probably not really easily, even though, you can individually Google people's names, there's probably nowhere else, right, that is just, it's so explicitly laid out as the sleuthing that you've done.
I don't think so. I've done some searches to see, and I found a bunch of lists of people and things. But yeah, as far as I know, there's no actual in-depth on each one. So
yeah, you have you're the original creator of the only Marvel DC crossover database. So I am really excited to see this. So why don't you go ahead and share your screen and just kind of walk us through how you built it and how everything is organized.
So this this initial view is just kind of like, because I kind of played around with forever to try to figure out like the first initial view that anybody would want to see when you go in there, because, it can be very different. So I thought, okay, let's just put all the people in there and show all the characters so you can really see really quickly that, how many the same person plays multiple characters.
Right.
So yeah, and I just have them arranged by their the name of their character. Well, actually, they're first sorted by the actor's name, and then the name of the character. And I didn't separate in the people tab. I didn't separate the last name from the first name, because I was like, it's not going to be something that's going to be maintained a lot. So I didn't go that granular with it.
Right. Yeah. More of a casual sort of usage, not like a legit first name, last name, middle name, suffix type deal.
Yeah. But I did, so I have, what I usually do is I'll do a grid view that just has like all the basics in here, just because I tweak a lot. And I just need something to like be able to change something quickly. So usually in all my views, I'll just have something at the bottom that's like with a ... is like an extra sort of a thing.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing. I'll call it like an admin view or .. sometimes.
Right, exactly.
Because then if you add new fields to a table that doesn't have any hidden fields, I think they'll automatically show up. So you can kind of like easily see like, okay, here's everything that I'm storing in this base in this table, which is really easy to forget sometimes as you're tinkering and moving around and kind of making refinements. So how many characters do you have in this table?
So there are, I believe it's 100. Oh no, it's more than 100. There are 152 characters.
Very nice. So when did you start? Did you set like a cutoff, year moving forwards, or is this just any Marvel or DC movie that's ever been made?
This is any Marvel or DC movie that has been made, as far as I could find through IMDb or Wikipedia.
Awesome. Very cool. So yeah, move us through the base and tables and give us a little tour. Oh, movies is cool too.
Sure. So there's a character. So on each one of these, I have the actor and the movie associated, and then I have like a little view, just a little quick formula that I did for the actor and then the character name. So it would be, so I could use this in another view. Mm-hmm. And then, I put like the number of movies, because, sometimes characters are in multiple movies. And then from the movies tab, I pulled in the poster. And if it was a series, which I started to go deeper into that, but then I had to cut myself off. It was just too much.
Yeah.
But so that's the series was when that started. But then I have the movies category, which talks about each one of the movies. And then I pop something in as a lookup field for, like, if you have this movie, all of these people have also been in other things. Cool. So it's associated. And then it'll say the universes that these actors have been in on, how many characters have been in different universes, that sort of a thing. And then this is just arranged by the most characters. So it goes, there's some that just have like 2.
Right.
And I think I'm not sure. Oh yeah. And so I did this view with just to see the movies that have been released, because there's some that are coming up, which we don't know the people who are in there. So I wanted them in there to acknowledge them, but obviously if, we don't know anything yet. And all of these, I love that Airtable now has the lookup feature for the images, because before I would have to save them, upload them, that sort of thing. And now it's like super simple. I can just go in there and do image search. So I just like an image poster search here and it just made it so much faster. That's really been helpful.
Right. Yeah. You can just Google within the file upload field and plop it in there. That's awesome. I honestly, I totally forgot about that until you just reminded me. So, and it looks great too in this gallery view, just very aesthetically pleasing and super organized.
Yeah, it's really fun. And, so I've got that. And, I separate them by the Marvel and DC. And there's, again, my little dot, dot, dot. With the comics, like I was saying, there's the cinematic universe, and there's the based on a comic sort of a thing. But there's actually 23 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is crazy. And there's only 8 in DC. So I found just little things like that. I was like, oh, really?
Right. Yeah.
Marvel's definitely got a leg up.
For sure. Yeah. I would actually, if you had asked me to guess, I would have said they were probably about even, right? With, how many releases they had done. So really cool insight that you just grabbed from, that was like, you're just counting the number of linked movies, right? From the movies table.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. Which one thing that, because you can count the number of linked or the number of, related fields, but you can't count a linked field. So if you have linked, records, you can only count them in the original tab.
Right. Yeah.
So I there's a little bit of trying to figure that out, but once you realize that, you can kind of go back and do it in the original one you did it in. But
right. Yeah. It's like sometimes you'll get into building and you're like, oh, well, I really want to put this thing in this table. Oh, well, I have to go put it back in this other table too, so I can put it into this one. Yeah. Just sort of
but that's part of the fun.
It is fun. It's very much like a sort of just a puzzle. And I think that's what's so fun about building something like this. You're like, okay, well, I'm just curious. Now I'm extra curious and I'm going to bring it into Airtable. So, you've done a really kind of nice job of structuring everything here and making it, super clear. Great use of gallery view too.
Yeah, it's, I definitely had to have just a cutoff from my standpoint, because I just kept agonizing over the little details, and right. I still agonize over it, and I still go back and I update things.
Right. Where does it stop?
I know. But yeah, so this is just a super quick view. There's not really much else you can do with this. Mm-hmm. The people is interesting. So here, these are the number of characters they played in a different universe, which I thought was super interesting as well. Mm-hmm. This goes along with the first sort of a view. It's just kind of mind-boggling how many times people are rotated for the same movie.
Right. And also it's kind of interesting because you would think, right, that DC and Marvel would maybe try and prevent actors from crossing over. But actually, I wonder if, having actors that do cross over, because I would say that if you're just a superhero film aficionado, you probably definitely have opinions on what's better, Marvel or DC, but you're also, willing to kind of see it all. So, maybe having this many kind of crossovers is beneficial, right? Sort of just for movie revenue in the long run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
But, yeah, I mean, I think Jon Favreau is probably the funniest one I've heard, because he has done 3 different characters, which I was like, oh, I had no idea. He's done the character most recently in the Spider-Man, but he was actually an assistant in Batman Forever.
Oh, really?
How random.
That is so random, but it counts. So it's in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Really cool. Were there any other actors that you found some, interesting stats on when you were kind of digging all this data up?
Most of it is just interesting from a point of view of oh, they're even in there. You just don't even realize. Right. I think Natalie Portman, I never would have thought that she would have been that she's in it, but she was in the Thor and she was in V for Vendetta, which is based on a DC comic.
Oh, I did not know that. Cool.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's one of the things that's a little interesting. Nicolas Cage, the fantastic Nicolas Cage, he did the Ghost Riders, and then he was also in Kick-Ass. Cool. So, right. Yeah. Just all these people, you're like, oh, wow.
Right. It is really interesting because just looking at their IMDb, you can't really, you just see everything that they were in. It's hard to kind of drill down in this way and just take a look at, these interesting kind of weird crossovers. Or I totally forgot about Ghost Rider. I think maybe a lot of people might want to forget about that one. I remember it wasn't very well. Didn't they do a Ghost Rider 2?
They sure did.
Did you see it?
I can't even remember if I saw the first one. Like,
yeah, I think
it's one of those things that's probably just on TBS and it was entertaining for a moment.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things that like somehow, it gets theatrical release by default, but it's definitely something, like you catch on like a Thursday night or something and you're like, whatever, there's nothing else on, I'll watch this. Cool. And then, so there's how many individual actors in your people table?
Let's see, there are 70.
Cool. So then it's, about 70 actors, right? Or make up, I think we said like 150 some characters. So, right. It's like most of them have probably played, an average of two roles, at least 2 characters.
Yeah, definitely. So like here you can see Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's the one that's played the most characters. He's played 4 different characters. Crazy. Like he's a big Walking Dead guy, I guess, right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then what's in the credits table?
Oh, so I started doing that because I'm like, I wanted people to know where I got this information, just because I'm a big like source person. Like,
right.
Well, what is, how is this actually true? So I just kind of put everywhere that I went to find the info. So like it's basically Wikipedia and IMDb.
Right.
There's no real good resource on Marvel or DC's website that does any of this.
Really? Yeah, you would think they would have some kind of like fun fact or search type thing, because this is really cool. So if is this just have you posted this on Airtable Universe, or is it on your film website or anything like that, so people can check it out and peruse it?
Yeah, it's on Airtable Universe, and I think I did post it on our Real News Daily site as well. But it's more fun in like a full view. Right. So that's where, and I've actually just found a website that claims to take Airtable info and pop it into like a website to power it.
What
I can't remember the name of it. I just saw it the other day. I haven't even had a chance to play around with it, but I was like, that could be really nice because, obviously this isn't the best sort of interface because it's not really intended for that. So, I'm going to check that out as well, because it would be fun to just people, look through this a little bit easier, because they get really intimidated when they see like filter and sort. They're like, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, you're like, I just want them to see this really nice view that I created and nothing else. Yeah, I do. I agree that, like embedding bases, I think is useful when you're using it for more of like a businessy context, maybe where people are more comfortable with it. But yeah, it is always like, I just want what I've created in Airtable to just basically look like a normal website, Cool. And so in all of your sort of, little kind of fun film projects like this, or, personal Airtable explorations, is this your favorite that you've created so far? Is there anything you're working on now that you're really excited about?
The Game of Thrones one, I'm more excited about, because like this, I finished in like July of 2000 last year. Mm-hmm. So since I at first just started with the recast characters of the Game of Thrones, and I really like it. And then I showed it to someone, they're like, oh, we want all the characters. And I was like, ooh.
You're like, oh, okay. I can do that.
So I'm like, that's a project, but I'm kind of giving myself, when the new season airs as my date to get that finished. So that's the newest thing that I'm going to be working on with that is.
Right. And when is the
plugging away?
The new season premieres what, in a couple of months?
April 14th.
April 14th. I knew you would know exactly. So we'll be on the lookout then for maybe a new, cool, fun film Airtable Universe, Game of Thrones thing around then. But it is really cool, like, because I think this information, I mean, obviously it's all out there, but it's just so satisfying to, do your research and then, put it in this thing that's just so visual and not just like this spreadsheet that you don't really want to look at, it's something that, and for like all of the sort of like, shortcomings sometimes with, sharing Airtable bases online. I think people are still, like you said, show this to my friend and they were really interested in it. So there is like, definitely something about it that just makes people kind of want to scroll through and take a peek and see how everything is related. This is so cool. I love this usage of it because it's something that's very, your own personal interest, but also is just like totally publicly available data, right? That so many people can relate to. So it's such a great kind of, experimental use case because, anyone can kind of set something up like this with whatever kind of, particular data set they want to, look through IMDb for. Cool. So, and let everyone know, where can they find you if they want to check out more of your film work or just reach out to you to chat?
Well, you can reach me on my Twitter, dial M for Melissa, or my website, Real News Daily, REEL News Daily, or Melissa at Real News Daily. Please reach out.
We'll include that website in the show notes too, so people can check it out. And I love your Twitter handle. That's very clever.
Thanks.
The Hitchcock reference. Cool. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for kind of giving us a little tour into your like fun film nerdy Airtable explorations. It was really enjoyable. And I hope you have a wonderful day in New York City. I hope it's not too cold right now. Is there snow on the ground?
There's snow in the air, actually.
Oh, it's snowing as we speak. Well, very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope you enjoy Tribeca coming up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.